Hi everybody and welcome back to the painting channel. Today is going to be something a little different. It is an oil, but I wanted to show you how you can transfer an image from a photo to your canvas. Let's get straight into it. Okay, welcome back, and as always I'd just like to take a quick opportunity to thank all my new subscribers and my existing subscribers. Thank you so much for all your support, and if you are watching this and you're not a subscriber, it costs you nothing. It really tells YouTube that my channel is worth watching, so subscribe and like it. That really helps too. It tells also YouTube that it's worth promoting my video to other people, so many more people get to see it. And also comment, that's fantastic. All these interactions really do help grow my channel, and I thank you for them in advance. So with that all said and done, if you want a lot more, don't forget there is a live stream every Monday evening at 7 o'clock London time. There is also a Patreon which is growing all the time. Lots of content going on there, lots of ways to interact with me and learn from me on a more direct basis, and know that your small donations on month-by-month basis really go to help support all my efforts in creating lots more content, not just for my patrons but also for YouTube. So take a look at that and it'd be swell, fantastic to have you on board. In the meantime, let's talk about oils. Let's talk about how you can transfer, or one of the ways you can transfer, an image from a photo to your canvas and have a lot more fun painting and dealing with the color aspect. Let's get started. Okay, so what I did this morning is I found a very simple image of a fallow deer. This one is one I took a few years ago in Richmond Park. Now what I did was I took it and made it a monochrome. There's no need to look at all the colors involved, it just becomes more confusing. And I took it and printed it on a very thin, flimsy piece of print paper. There's no weight to this, it's very, very thin. And I then used something that's called trace down paper. It's like a graphic paper, or it's a carbonized paper. It gets very dirty on your fingers, I've noticed, and it will leave dirt all over your canvas. I've seen that too. But it's a very simple device. You can of course use tracing paper. You can reverse the image on here and on your computer, and you can trace it from the screen. There are many ways of doing this. Of course you can always freehand draw it, but the idea of doing this today is to show those of you who really can't do a lot of drawing, or for one reason or another just want to get into the painting of it, then this is a great way of transferring that image. So all I simply did is put one under the other, placed it on the paper where I wanted it. I would suggest you tape top and bottom. Then I just went round the edges with a pencil, just mark where the eyes are, the mouth, the nose, the ears. But I didn't get involved with all the rest of this. There's no need to. I didn't get involved with any of the spots or anything of that nature. I merely took the outline as much as I needed to do. And again, I think you don't really need to do too much more than that. The more detail you put in, the more can go wrong, in fact, because when you trace, there is a spreading of the information. I think you'll find that when you draw and you press through a couple of layers or something, then the actual detail is lost a little bit, because there is a bit of movement, there is a bit of I don't know, it's softening of the image. It's not as crisp as or direct. I may be wrong on that, but that's how I feel. So the more detail you put in, the more it can actually go wrong. So if you can just stick to the immediacy of the outline, I think you're going to be so much better equipped to move forward. But all I'm going to do with that is use some neat dry pigment, and I'm just going to go around and quickly draw in the outer edge shape of my deer, like so. Just kick in and put all these little points in. And again, when you're doing this, instead of just drawing straight with a brush, which I would normally do, you are sort of almost at the point when you can quite easily move off of the marks that you made. So again, your copy can, if you're not careful, become more distorted than it was before. Already I can see my lines are altering.
So you really do need to pay a lot of attention to that. It's like making copies of copies of copies. The more you do it, the more you lose detail, and the registration or information gets a little bit more blurred, a bit more lost. The paper I'm using is a Clairefontaine oil paper, specific for oil painting on, of course. I've never really used it before, and I felt that it worked very, very well. A little bit absorbent, but there are ways around that, and you can get over that quite easily. But as a whole, I think it's a great paper because you can store multiple paintings in such a little piece of space. So if room is essential to you, then you don't have to have shelves full of panels and full of canvases. You can just have a swatch with loads and loads of oil paintings on paper. What I'm doing here is a blocking. Basically, this is all my first layer. This is establishing all my lights and all my darks before I proceed. The middle grasses, I've got warmth as well as green in because it's catching a lot of sunshine, and the background has got a lot of cool colors but no real detail at all. And in the deer itself, I'm actually putting a warm grey into the most part, but I'm also putting that lovely violet blue in the front of the neck and the throat area. Now I'm coming in with some really dark, some warm darks, lots of ochres and lots of burnt sienna going in there, bit of red, bit of all sorts of really warming it up. And that red and the green next to it will really ping with each other. It really does work. It's a great way of creating beautiful complementary contrast between the lights, the darks, as also the warms and the cools. Now I've started refining, and I'm on my second layer, and I've gone in with a lovely violet haze across that tree line beyond, but I've also started breaking out some of the differences between the darks and the lights in the field. Little general taps with a medium small round brush. And now I'm using a rigger, and I'm defining some of those longer grasses even more than I ever was before. So now I'm still with the rigger, but I'm now defining the antlers, the horn, and I'm putting a pretty generic dark, not a warm dark, quite a cool dark, and then I'm putting in some lovely blue violets into the horn on the other side before I now head straight on into those long grasses again. And I am going through the head. I want the grasses along the face to sort of go right up to it without leaving a little mark or a little white line around it. So I go into the face, but I can get rid of that later. It's not a problem. Just make sure you take your grasses into the head and out from the bottom. And I'm using negative space and positive space. I'm going in with dark lines over light and light lines over dark. If you do it as a one-pass operation and keep your brush clean, you can really get away with it. Now I'm starting to put those lovely greens in. At first they're cool mid-tone greens. Some of them are quite dark, some have got a lot of blue in them. That's to give me my shadow areas before I go in with the lighter, more acidic colors like this. Now I'm putting in that yellow into that green and showing the definition of the grasses. But it's still quite a basic rendering. There's no big detail in there at the moment. Now I really am going in for some detail on these grasses. Lovely light specks, taps, and little bits of tips of the brush going in there to make the sense of seed heads, grasses, everything that's catching the light as I come down. And as I come into the shade, I change the value down to a bit more of a violet, not as strong as the lights right up near the face of the animal. And I'm bringing that all the way down into the green. And again, the green and the violet work with each other very, very well. Now I'm using the rigger to come in and put some grass structure in. Again, I've gone from my basic rendering to, blocking, all the way through to adding more detail. And you can see as the painting jumps, the more and more detail has been put in. It's just merely little taps with the brush. A bit more light coming from here where it's cascading across the side of the animal. So it's catching the sun rays on those bits of grass. Not too many, just a few pieces here and there. Don't overdo it. It easily can be done too much. So you just have to be aware of that as you're working. But I'm refining all the time. I'm refining. I'm putting violets to greens, light greens to dark greens, greens over reds, all complementaries and all different ends of the scale in value. So you've got to watch for that, and it's really, really useful. Now I'm turning my attentions. I've pretty much finished everything else, so I want to work on the animal itself. I'm putting in a few of the duller spots on this beautiful animal. I love the spots on these deer, really beautiful, but they are in shades, so they're not going to be tremendously bright. I'm putting some real warm colors over the side where the sun is getting to the top of the animal and just cascading down the side of the rear leg there, and it comes into the grasses, so it's a little bit extra light going in. But similarly, so too the spots will get a little brighter here, just a few taps of bright color, just to say that they are in light and not in shadow. Just a few bits around the bottom just to finish off that back end of the animal. Now I'm turning my attention to the final part, the face, the head, developing the bone structure on the head and the muscles on the neck and the throat, adding a bit of light here and there and a little bit of light around the eye and the antlers. And also the ears need doing, because I actually haven't done those yet, so I'm just refining, and every bit is a stage closer to the finish. As I tap away, I'm looking at changing values of colors already there. So the colors basically been blocked in, as you saw, but now I turn my attention to refining those colors. On each pass I look to see where I need to go, refine a bit of the drawing if I think it's gone out a little bit, and as I've done on the horn there, put a little bit of a color change, a bit of tonal shift on the antlers just to give them that extra 3-dimension that we're looking for to achieve. And all the time it's just a development. Now what I'm saying about drawing is that there's nothing wrong with putting a transfer across. What I would like to suggest is that you don't become and rely upon it. If you can still keep your drawing habits going, you will develop your drawing skills all the time. But you can also use this method if you wish to. It's a very, very optional and very personal thing. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I just feel that if you can develop your drawing skills and do it this way, then all the time, that's fantastic. And as I say, you don't rely upon it, and that way you can develop both skills. I think it really is important. But there you go, I am pretty much done, and I'm really happy with the way this has turned out. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you got something from it as well, because it was a fun thing to do. I do love doing wildlife. I mean, that's what I'm known for, is doing wildlife. So yeah, it's a lot of fun, and I think if you have a go at this and use the transfer method as well. So I will be putting the information up on my Patreon, so have a look at it, see if you like it, have a go, and yeah, see how you get on. All the best for now. Bye bye.